Greetings, Andy here again, and this is my entry into the vinyl tag of 2024. Rob Walker yesterday on the 1st of January posted his annual vinyl tag. So it's basically, if you haven't seen it, it's 20 questions and he invites other members of the vinyl community to do their own version, run through his questions and give their own answers to them. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to whiz through quickly because there's 20 questions and I've got a few more albums than that, so some have more than one answer. A couple of things before I crack on. First of all, a very happy new year and a prosperous new year to one and all. Secondly, a bit of a request. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do. I'm sort of slightly stuck on around 650, 660 over the last couple of months and subscribers, and I'd really like to get up to 1,000 this year. So if you can help me with that, I'd be very grateful. And if you like this, please click like. Thank you. Let's get going. Question one, favourite record you purchased in 2023? Those who have been watching my roundup of new music, new releases in 2023 will know that my favourite album, new release album this year was Harmony Codex by Steven Wilson, and this is the vinyl copy of it. It's very good, but Wilson has actually made his preferable mix, the surround sound, which is on Blu-ray, and I've got that, and it is amazing. It truly is amazing. But that's not my answer. But because my actual favourite record that I bought in 2023 on vinyl was an upgrade on my CD that I've had for years, and that is Mogwai's debut of Young Team. Came out in February, it was reissued in February, and along with the second album, Come On Die Young, or Cody as it's more regularly known, enabled me to complete my set of Mogwai on vinyl. So I've now got all their studio albums, and this debut from 1998, I think it was, is my favourite. So, question one. Question two, the last record you bought in 2023. Well, on the 29th of December, I had to pop into my local branch of HMV to take back a record I bought from them, which bizarrely had two LP1s, i.e. two sides A and B, and not an LP2. Anyway, they didn't have a copy on there, and it was, on hindsight, it was fairly average. So I rummaged through the sale and picked four records. Now, three of them were 223 releases, so I'm going to cover those in my December new releases roundup. But the fourth was The Verve and their fabulous album Urban Hymns. Now, this is one I've had, since it first came out in what was it, 97-ish. On CD, it's because it's such a great album. It's one I keep an eye open for, and this was in the sale. It was a reasonable price, so I picked it up. Question three, a band or singer who released two or more albums in a year. Rob picked The National, which was what my first thought, because they produced two albums in 2023, but I didn't want to redo that, so I'm gone back. And I'm picking Uriah Heep because in the early 70s, they had three consecutive years, 71, 72 and 73. In each of those years, they released two records. So 71 was Salisbury and Look at Yourself. 72 was Demons and Wizards and The Magician's Birthday. And 73 was Sweet Freedom and the live, Uriah Heep Live. I've got all of those, but I'm picking 72 to showcase because they're on picture disc, and they're both they both got the fabulous cover art by Roger Dean. So Demons and Wizards, there you go, and The Magician's Birthday. So, moving on, number four. I've got a copious notes here I keep referring to because there's too much detail to hold in my very small brain. If you could only listen to music from one decade, what would it be? For me, it's a toss-up between the 90s and the 70s. But, at the end of the day, I turned 13 in a very early February 1970. So effectively the 70s were my formative music years. I spent the whole of my teen years in that decade and the first 2 or 3 years of my 20s in there. So that was the period where I really started buying records and enjoying music. And it was a decade of such variation, both in terms of the styles, but over time how the music evolved. So I'm just going to pick here to showcase that variety. 3 albums, starting 1970, Black Sabbath and Paranoid, and we all know what that is. And this one is on the Vertigo Swirl. And from 1975, a fabulous pop album by Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboys, and it's always a bit of a toss-up for me whether this or Yellow Brick Road is my favourite. It probably depends which mood I'm in. And then from the end of the decade, 1979, post-punk, and the Jam and Setting Suns. Question 5. Show a record by a band or singer from Manchester. So it's a bit of a double Manchester one on this, and I'm picking the Durruti Column and their album A Paean to Wilson. And Wilson, this guy here, is Tony Wilson, who famously co-founded both Factory Records and the famous Hacienda nightclub in Manchester. And the guy there is Vinnie Riley, who essentially is the Durruti Column. And he was a bit of a prodigy of Wilson, and I think he was the first artist he signed up to Factory Records. And Vinnie produced this album, what was it, 2010 I think? Yeah, 2010, after Wilson died. And it's a sort of eulogy to him, basically. It's a triple. It's got some of the most beautiful music that Riley has produced over the years. It's a fabulous album. Number 6. Which band or singer did you listen to the most in 2023? Well, you know, setting aside the usual suspects, I'm going to pick. This is a what probably would have been. I'm going to pick Lankum and their fabulous album False Lankum. Now I only discovered this at the end of November, and you know, it ended up being straight in at my number 3 of the whole year, and I've listened to it endlessly during December, and it came out in March, and I think if I discovered it then, it would absolutely have been the most listened to record of the year. It's certainly the most remarkable record I've heard all year. Lankum are a Dublin folk band, but it's not remotely like any traditional folk I've ever heard of. It's really opened my eyes to what folk can be. So fabulous album. Number 7. Show 7 7-inch records. Now I don't have any singles. I don't collect them, never have. I obviously bought some when I was in my early teens, but they're long lost. So I did think of an alternate question I'd put in here, but basically I've decided to keep that for another day. And so I'm going to skip question 7 and go straight to question 8, which was, who's coming to your party? Choose 4 music-related people to come to an imaginary dinner party, past or present. Who would you invite? Well, I'm going to start with Noel Gallagher of obviously Oasis fame, and here he is in a long time ago in the mid 90s or early 90s, what can I say? No, I've heard him a lot on the radio, and he's a fabulous raconteur. I just think he would be really interesting. For my next 2 guests, I'm choosing a married couple, and that is Robert Fripp and Toyah Willcox. And obviously Fripp is King Crimson, and I think it'd be really interesting to talk to him about the various albums and lineups that they've done. And Toyah, his wife, is a pop singer and an actress. and I think they'd be great fun. If you've seen they post a weekly or most weeks a sort of Sunday lunchtime cover song they've done, and they're always funny. I think so anyway. And Toyah grew up, she's a couple of years younger than me, but she grew up in South Birmingham, same area as I did. So it'd be good to chew the cud over a growing up period there. And my fourth guest is Peter Gabriel. Now, for more than 60 years, I've been listening to Gabriel as one of my favourite singers of all time. Genesis, one of my favourite bands of all time, and then his solo career right up to his most recent album, which only came out in December. So we lost them. Choose one musician who passed away in 2023, and it's another Birmingham person, and I'm talking about Denny Laine, who obviously was a founder member of the Moody Blues, but I think he only stayed for one album. Well, I don't have that. And then he co-founded Wings with Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. I don't have a lot of Wings, but I do have their fabulous live album, Wings Over America. Imagine you could only listen to music from one country. What would it be? Well, I've got to take the United Kingdom. So, in its broadest sense, though, I think Rob pulled it down a little bit finer and said England, but I'm going to say the UK. That's where I'm from. I love music from all around, but if I had to pick, it would be the UK. And if we think, over 60 years, it's pretty amazing, really, that such a small island has produced so many great bands and so many, groundbreaking bands. So we know who they are. I'm not going to repeat them. Name, number 11, name 3 vinyl community channels you discovered in 2023. So I'm going to start with, and Rob also said, who have sort of less than 1,000 subscribers. So Gatefold 33, Dales has 500 subs. He's got it's always interesting. He follows a few sort of specific labels, and they're bands I don't particularly know quite often. Life of Vinyl, Jamie, always produces some great videos, 300 subs. And then I was umming and ahhing between 2, so I've decided I'm going to break the rules here and I'm going to put them both on, so that's 4. And that's Mike Vinyl Spiral and Vinyl Martini. And they've both got about 400 subscribers. So, show a record you bought when you were a teenager. Well, basically, any record I bought between 1970 and 76, I was a teenager. So I've already mentioned quite a few, but I'm going to bring this one up because it's slightly less well known than some of the others, and that is Chicken Shack and Imagination Lady. This came out in 71. I either bought it then or maybe 72 because I actually saw them in concert. They were in sort of a double header with Savoy Brown. And it was brilliant. Stan Webb, the leader of it, brilliant guitarist. They're also a Birmingham band or Midlands band. And before this, she'd left, by the time this was produced in 71, Christine McVie, under her maiden name of Christine Perfect, was a member of Chicken Shack. She's also grew up in near Birmingham. So there you go, that's that. Show a funk or soul record, number 13. And I'm going for the very funky Funkadelic and their album Maggot Brain. Now, this is really sort of funk rock rather than soul funk, but it's still funk. It says so there, Funkadelic. Maggot Brain, I mean, the title track on it is a 10-minute guitar solo, and it's very possibly the best guitar solo ever cut to wax. Now, that's a bit of a statement, but it is absolutely superb by the late Eddie Hazel. Most people know it, but if you don't, check it out. Show a record you think everyone has, and then show a record you think nobody has. Well, I'm going for Dark Side of the Moon. You know, most people have got this. I think it's the second highest selling album ever, apparently. Still second, but still a long way behind Thriller, which I don't have. So there you go. That's that. And thinking of one of the most obscure records and obscure bands I could think of is a band called Indie Howdy. That's Indie spelled Y-N-D-I. Howdy, H-A-L-D-I, and this is their second album, which came out in 2016, and it's called Under Summer. Now, Indie Howdy apparently is Old Norse for, let me read this because I can't remember what it is, Enjoy Eternal Bliss. And Enjoy Eternal Bliss was the name also of their debut release, which, according to Discogs, is an EP. Now, I don't have it on vinyl, but I do have a digital copy, and it's an hour long. I can't quite work out how a record which, you know, on vinyl would have to be a double LP is classed as an EP. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, 10 years, so that came out in 2006, 10 years later, so they're not the most prolific band. They produced this. It's another double. There's only 4 tracks on it. It's post-rock. So everyone who knows me knows I'm into post-rock, and it's sort of like slightly psyche post-rock. You'd be forgiven for thinking with an Old Norse name and a style of music that they're from Norway or maybe Iceland, but no, Old Norse or not, they're from Canterbury in Kent in the southeast of England. So a bit obscure. I bet nobody's got it, but if somebody has, I will be more than delighted. And She's Great, a record by a female artist you bought in 2023. And I'm picking PJ Harvey, Polly Jean Harvey, and her album from 2023, new release of I Inside the Old Year Dying, which I talked about quite a bit on my when I did my roundup of my countdown of favourite records of 2023. So I'm not going to dwell on that. Now, 16. The favourite video you posted in your channel in 2023, and the favourite video you watched on the VC in 2023. So my favourite one I did, it sort of ought to be the 10 albums I listened to most, because that went a bit viral, and I ended up putting on quite a lot of subscribers with that. So it helped me build the channel. But it wasn't my favourite to make. That was another thread. And it was called the Vinyl Chain Challenge, and the idea was start with an album pulled at random and then link that to the next one over 20 albums by some sort of connection, either an obvious one or a random one. And I like doing puzzles, so I like to try and find some sort of cryptic connection, and I really enjoyed doing that. I split it over 2 videos actually, just in the interest of time. In April, and then I enjoyed doing it so much. I did, in August I did a third 10 albums, so number 30 to 39, and I'm thinking I'll probably do another one in the next couple of months because it was good fun. I've started to think about some random connections. So which one did I like? So I'm going to choose Steve Carson's road trip to Charlotte, North Carolina. To visit Noble Records, amongst some other stop-offs he did on the way. So I really like Steve's channel anyway, but Noble Records was probably the first Unity vinyl channels that I started watching. And somewhat coincidentally, I've only visited the States twice, both on business, and both times were to North Carolina. One to actually Charlotte itself, and then another time to Asheville, but which was flying into Charlotte, so and another look around while I was there. So it's just those connections. So it was a great video. I really enjoyed it. So 17. Show me a record you describe as a 90s classic. Well, it says classic. It doesn't say your favourite 90s album, and this isn't remotely my favourite, but it's a true classic. And it's My Bloody Valentine and their album Loveless, and this debut album from 1991. And there's a couple of reasons why I'm picking this. So, you know, this was a classic of, well, it's not really a genre, but of shoegaze. So, you know, which in that sort of early mid 90s sort of suddenly blossomed, and this really was, you know, a classic of it. But in 2023, it's had a bit of a resurgence. So, you know, I've got back into shoegaze and bands like My Bloody Valentine. And the other connection was, you know, it's that time of year again, and lists. I do like a list. And Pitchfork have been republishing some of their sort of lists, and I had an email the other day, and I noticed on it was their favourite albums of or what they consider the best albums of the 90s, of the whole 90s. So I had to rummage through that, and this was number one. Now I wouldn't remotely have it as number one, but it's certainly a slam dunk classic. So that's my classic 90s, and it's. My Bloody Valentine and Loveless. Question 18, so we're running towards the end here. If I could walk into the cover, look through your collection and choose a record cover you'd like to be a part of. Well, after lots of umming and ahhing, I have picked Deep Purple and Made in Japan. Live album, possibly one of the best live albums ever, so it always appears in the list. But on the cover is a picture of the band playing and the audience there, and I would love to have been in that audience watching them. Some great concerts they did. I did actually see them much later in the OOs, and they were very good then, but 30 years before, at their absolute peak. This would have been brilliant, and it's in Japan, so it would have been nice to go to the concert in Japan and then do some sightseeing. So hey, let me just check the last one. So 19, it's like a greatest hits. Show a record you're as familiar with that it feels like a greatest hits. Well, I have covered this before, but you know, I can't think of a better sort of near greatest hits, and that is Muse and their second album, which is The Origin of Symmetry. Now, it originally came out in 2002. Obviously, I had it on CD from first issue, but this is the 20th anniversary reissue and remix, which came out obviously in 2022, and it's such a great album. It's, I mean, you know, just looking at the track listing: Newborn, Bliss, Space Dementia, Hyper Music, Plug-in Baby, Citizen Arranged, Microcuts, Screen Ager, Dark Shines, a fabulous cover of Feeling Good, Futurism and Megalomania. Now, a lot of those were actually issued as singles. It's just, it really is like a greatest hits. It's you know, to me, their best album. Great stuff. And finally, question 20, show me an album that was released in 1974, i.e. an album which turns 50 this year. Lots of choice here, but I'm picking Supertramp and their album Crime of the Century, which was released in 74 on the A&M label, and you know, it's got some great famous tracks in there. Bloody Well Right, Dreamer, Rudy, and of course Crime of the Century and others. Fabulous album. So thanks so much for watching, and please come back. I shall be doing some more videos in the next few weeks. Thanks for watching. Cheers.